Hi, this is my attempt to contribute to the ongoing learning that is happening during this time of coronavirus and COVID-19. And I thought that since I studied in graduate school things that I never get to teach now, that I might use this opportunity to talk about the things that I really loved in grad school that I never get to get passionate about in the classroom. So my master's and my PhD are in medieval studies from the University of Connecticut. And I actually specialized in medieval drama and medieval lit. I do get to teach a little bit of medieval drama because I teach in a theater department. So I teach theater history and those kinds of things, but I also teach a lot of practical drama applications, movement and acting. So the literary side of things is something I don't normally get to get into. So I got very excited when I started thinking about Chaucer again, which I know is the most geeky thing in the world, but that's it. And so I wanted to talk about my favorite, Troilus and Criseyde. So let me tell you about why it's my favorite. My first semester in graduate school, and I got there, and I was the only student who was the incoming student in medieval studies that year, strangely. I was told before classes started that I would want, that in the spring I'd be able to take medieval drama with Tom Jambeck, and that there was a special class on Chaucer's Troilus and Criseyde happening that fall with a guest professor, because we used to have European professors come for intensive months before their semester started every year. So I was not very excited by either of these possibilities because everybody knows that medieval drama is boring. That's not true, but that's what I thought. And I didn't really think I was all that interested in Chaucer and Middle English. So Peter Brown came from the University of Kent to do this intensive study of Troilus and Criseyde, and I didn't know anything. I had no experience with Middle English. I had no experience with Middle English orthography, which is the handwriting, the actual letters, that there are some substituted letters. And I had a roommate who was also in the class, obviously a medievalist. And I didn't ask her for help. I decided that I was supposed to know this stuff and I had to find it out myself. So I was sort of ground floor on this thing. Anyway, I fell in love with the poem. And so I want to share, it's too long for me to read all of it to you, even in stages, but I love reading in Middle English. Perhaps that's the theatrical side of me. And I love the way Chaucer sounds. Troilus and Criseyde, the poem is extremely dialogue heavy. So much of it is in the voices of the characters, which are really quite distinct. And there really are only three main characters, which allows for a really interesting psychological exploration of them. So I am going to read you the first stanza, and then I'm going to talk about it a little bit, and then I'm going to skip some stuff, and then we'll get to the good stuff. So this is from Book 1 of Troilus and Criseyde. The double sorrow of Troilus to tellen, that was the King Priamus son of Troy, in loving, who his aventures fellen fro woe to wail, and after out of joy, me purposes, ere that he part for ye. Thesiphone, thou help me for tendita this woeful verse that weeping as irrita. Okay, so he's going to tell us the double sorrow of Troilus. Troilus is the son of Priam, the king of Troy, during the Trojan War. Most of us know that the Trojans lost the Trojan War, which is true here too. But we don't know that yet at the beginning of the poem. Interesting fact. In the Middle Ages, English people referred to London as New Troy. They saw themselves as ancestors of or descendants of the Trojans. So clearly this story is going to be told from the Trojan viewpoint. The Trojans are the good guys and the Greeks are the bad guys. Usually when we hear about the Trojan War, we tend to get the story from the other side. So this one is from the Trojan side. So Troilus is a young prince in Troy, and he is a good soldier. And this war, of course, has happened because of the abduction of Helen of Troy, although in this viewpoint, Helen has run off with Paris, has not been taken by Paris, but has gone willingly of her own accord and is happily living in the Trojan court. That's the lens through which this is being seen. So it's a double sorrow, partly because it's a double sorrow for Troilus as a prince of Troy, and Troy's going to fall, and for his own personal story in love, but it's also a double sorrow, I think, because of Troilus and Criseyde's sorrow. I think that's what Chaucer means. So anyway, he calls upon the goddess or muse of Thespiphane, which I said better in Middle English than I do in modern, to call upon that, and he puts himself into the I'm writing this for all servants of love. Just like Chaucer always does, he has kind of a long preamble to explain why he's telling this story, which is not really what interests me so much, except that he says that this is a good story for lovers because they'll recognize themselves in it and they'll also like to weep over it. So I'm going to skip over a little bit to actually where it starts to tell the story. So, told you about Troilus. Let me tell you about Criseyde. Criseyde is the daughter of the prophet or the seer Calchas, who is Trojan. Calchas, because he's prophetic, knows that Troy is going to fall to the Greeks. So earlier on in the war, he has defected over to the Greeks. So Criseyde has left alone there in Troy. She's a widow, which is super important. She's not a virginal maiden, but she is a widow. So she is probably older, a little bit older than Troilus, and she's experienced. So she's left alone. So that this little next part actually talks about that. So that gives you some framework for that. She's also beautiful. Now fell it so that in the town there was dwelling a lord of great authority, a great divine, that cleped was Calchas, that in science so expert was that he knew well that Troy should destroyed be. The answer of his god that hichte thus Don Phoebus or Apollo Delphicus. So one this Calchas knew be calculating and eke the answer of this Apollo that Graecus should in switch a people bring thorough which that Troy must ben for do. He cast anon out of the town to go, for well wist he, besought that Troy shoulder destroyed ben, yea, wolde whoso nolde. For which for the departing softly took purpose full this for knowing Weeza, and told the Graecus oost full privily he stall anon, and they in courteous Weeza did him both worship and service, in trust that he hath conning him to rede in every peril which that is to dread. Great rumour gone when it was first espied through all the town, and generally was spoken that Calchas traitor fled was, and allied with him of grace, and casten to be rocken on him that falsely had his faith so broken, and saiden he and all his kin at onus been worthy for to brennen, fell and bonus. Now new had a Calchas left in this mischance, all unwist of this false and wicked data, his doctor, which that was in great penance, for of her lief she was full sore and dread, as she that niste what was best to read, for both a widower was she, and alone, of any friend to whom she durst her moan. Criseyde was this laddie naam alricht, as to me doom in all Troia city, nas none so fair, for passing every wicht, so angelic was her native beauty, that like a thing immortal seemed she, as doth an heavenish perfect creature, that doon were set in scorning of nature. This laddie, which that all day heard at air her father's shama, his falseness and treason, well nay out of her wit for sorrow and fair, in widow's habit large of summit brune, on Canes she fill before Hector adoon with piteous voice, and tenderly weeping his mercy bad, herself in excusing. Now, nu was this Ector piteous of nature, and saw that she was sorrowfully begun, and that she was so fair a creature of his goodness, he gladded her anon, and said, Let your father's treason gone forth with mischance, and ye yourself in joy dwelleth with us, will you good list in Troy. And all the honour that men may don you have, as forthwith as your father dwelleth here, ye shall have, and your body shall men salve, as fair as ye may aught in care or hair. And she him thanked with full humble cheer, and ofter wolde, and it had been his will, and took her leave and home, and held her still. I want to take a moment to say, he basically just said that she cannot be raped, which could have been a way that they took their vengeance on her. Okay, I'm on, just in case anybody's found the text and wants to follow along, I'm in book 1, line 127. And in her house she abode with such main as till her honour need was to hold her. And while she was dwelling in that city, kept her estate, and both of young and old, full well beloved, and well men of her told her. But whether that she children had or none, I read it not, therefore I let it go. Typical Chaucer. His source doesn't tell him whether or not she has any children, so he's just going to let that go. I'll talk about his source another time. His source is Boccaccio, but he says his source is Lollius, which is made up, which is typical Chaucer. Okay, so therefore, she is living in honor. She's keeping herself well. She's behaving herself, and she has this honor. She's gotten over the hump of Calchas departing for now. So I'm going to pick it up here, book 1, line 169, and the intervening bit, which is about a page, says, yes, the people of Troy were still at war, but they were living fairly normally, and it's really important for them to worship their gods. So they are still going to do their festivals and things like that. So they're going to honor Palladian. There's a relic, which of course is very Christian to say that there's a relic. And so it's April, the time when people fall in love, springtime. It's April, and they're going to do their observances. So there's a big, so imagine a temple with lots and lots of people. And everybody is going to this service. And Criseyde is there, and Troilus is going to show up. So this is the passage in which Troilus first sees her and falls in love with her. And I will just give it away because you probably can't understand it right out, that he is mocking lovers. So picking up with, imagine a crowd in a temple. This poem is so cinematic. Among these other folk was Criseyde, in widow's habit black, but natheless richt azure first letter is now an A. In beauty first so stood she makeless, her goodly looking gladded all the press, nas never yet saying thing to ben praise dear, no under clode black, so bricht a stare, as was Criseyde, so, as folk said every John that her beheld and in her black awada. And yet she stood full low and still alone, behinden other folk in little bread, and nigh the door, I under shamus dread, simple of a tear and debonair of chair, with full assured looking and manner. This Troilus, as he was wont to guide his young and knechts, lad him up and down in thilke large temple on every side, beholding I the laddies of the tune, now new here, new there, for no devotion had he to none to raven him his rest, but gone to prize and lacken whom him lest. And in his walk full fast he gone to whiten if knecht or square of his company gone for to seek, or let his eyen biten on any woman that he could espy. He would a smile and holden it fully, and say him thus, God woot, she sleepeth soft for love of thee when thou turnest full oft. Ye have heard told, pardieu, of your living, ye lovers, and your lewd observances, and which a labour folk on in winning of love, and in the caping which do dances, and when your praise lost, woe and penances. O very fooles, niece and blinde be ye, there nis not un can wear be either bay. And with that word he gan cast up the brew askaunces. Lo, is this not weaselly spoken? At which the god of love gan look and row richt for despite, and shop for to ben rocken. He kid anon his boo, nas not broken, and suddenly he hit him at a full, and yet as prude a paycock can he pull. O blinde world, O blinde intention, who often falleth all the effect contraire of circuity and full presumption, for cocht is proud, and cocht is debonair. This Troilus is clomben up the stair, and little waneth that he mote descenden, but all day faileth thing that fooleth wenden. As prude Bayard ginneth for to skip out of the way, so pricketh him his corn, till he a lash have of the long whip. Then thinketh he, though he prance all beforn first in the tries, full fat and new shorn, yet am he but an horse, and horse's law he moot endure, and with me fairest draw. So fared it be this fierce and prudent knecht, though he a worthy king's son were, and when nothing had switch mecht against his will that should his herte stare, yet with a look his herte wax a fear, that he that knew was most impreed above wax suddenly most subject unto love. For the ensemble talketh of this man, ye wees a prude and worthy focus alla, to scorn and love, which that so soon can the freedom of your hertes to him thralla. For ever it was, and ever it shall befall, that love is he that alla thing may binde, for my no man fordone the law of kinde. That this be soth hath praved and done yet. For this, truly ye knowen allor sum, man reden not that folk han greater wit than they that han be most with love enome. And strangest folk been therewith ever overcome, the worthiest and greatest of the grey. This was, and is, and yet man shall it say. Book 1, line 267, Troilus is about to see Criseyde. Within the temple he went to him forth, playing this Troilus, of every wicht aboot, on this laddie, and new on that, looking whereso she were of tune or of without, and upon cast befell that thorough a root, his eye persuaded, and so deep it went, till on Criseyde it smote, and there it stent. And suddenly he waxed therewith astonished, and gan her bet befold in thrifty wise. Oh, mercy, God, thought he, where hast thou woned, that art so fair and goodly to devise? Therewith his herte gan to spread and rise, and soft seed, lest men michte him here, and caught again his first playing chair. She nas not with the lest of her stature, but alla her limbs so well answering whereunto womanhood, that creature was never less mannish in seeming, and eke the pure wise of her maving showed well that men micht in her guess honour, estate, and womanly noblesse. To Troilus riecht wonder well with alla gan for to leak her maving and her chair, which some del Danish was, for she let fall her look a lit aside, in switch manner askance, what, my e not stunden here? And after that her looking gan she lichte, that never a thought him seen so good a sichte. and of her look, and of her look in him there gan to quicken so great desire and such affection that in his heart of bottom gan to sticken of her his fix and deep impression. And though he erst had a poured up and down, he was though glad his harness into shrink unnethus wiste he who to look or wink. Okay, last bit for this one. So Troilus leaves the temple and is sort of freaking out, and the image of Criseyde grows stronger and stronger and implants itself in his mind, which is one of the Andreas Capellanus's rules of courtly love. Is that's what happens when you are in love. You cannot get the image of the beloved out of your mind. Of course, he's mocked love, and he doesn't know what to do. He's a gormless twit when it comes to love. So this is sort of him at home wondering what to do. And one that he in chambre was alone, he down upon his bed his fate him set, and first he's gone to see, and after groan, thought I on her so without and let, that as he sat and woke, his spirit met that he saw a temple, and all the wees richt of her look, and gan it new of ease. Thus gan he make a mirror of his mind, in which he saw all holy her figure, and that he well could in his heart to find. It was to him a recht good aventure to love such one, and if he did his cure to serven her, yet michte he falle in grass, or else for one of her servants pass. Imagining that travail nor gram ne michte for so goodly one be lorn as she, ne him for his desire no shame, all where it wist, but in praise and upborn of all the lovers well more than before. Thus argumented he in his ginning, full unavised of his woe coming. Thus took he purpose love's craft to sow, and thought to he wold and work in privily, first to hidden his desire in mure, from every wichty born all outrally, but he michte ought recovered by there be, remembering him that love to weed a blow yield bitter fruit, though sweet a seed be so. And over all this, yet mutual more he thought, what for to speak, and what to holden in, and what to urgen her to love he sought, and on a song an unrecht to begin, and God load on his sorrow for to win. For with good hope he gan fully assent, Criseyde for to love, and not repent. So then he writes a song, and there's a song that he sings. There's several songs in the poem. So I'm going to stop there. What happens at that point is he really becomes lovesick. He's pale, he won't eat, he won't tell anybody, he's just constantly thinking about her. And then ultimately, in the next bit, he's going to finally confide in the third character, who's a primary character in the poem, which is Pandarus, who happens to be Criseyde's uncle. So that's what's coming. This is kooky, and I hope you like it. See you next time.